Welcome to Tier 2. I am a little bit late. We're a little bit late for the stream today, but that is because we had a few minor technical difficulties with getting the stream in order. But we are ready to go. We are racing at Albert Park. That is frozen on your screen. Apologies for that. Before we get into the race, we are affiliated with Rogue Energy. Please use code PHX for 10% at checkout for 10% off your order. I messed it up slightly. My bad. But welcome. Why is there no audio? Why is the game so quiet? Okay, that's just the game being the game. To Albert Park. Where is the audio settings? I would like to be able to hear the cars go around the track, please. Thank you. As you can see, it is raining. That is because we did the weather, and the weather is I'm good at this, I promise. I'm a bit tired, so apologies for that. No, so this week is a sprint weekend, sorry. So the drivers will go through a Stu's already retired. 3 retirements already. It is a sprint race weekend, so drivers go through a one-shot qualifying event before going for a sprint race, which I believe is 10 laps around Albert Park for today. And then 29 laps of racing, so 33 points, I believe, are on the line. 34, including the fastest lap. And to no surprise, Panos leading the pack right now in P1 for the one-shot qualifying in the rain. Yeah, sorry, my bad. They're not DNFing. They had quali bans. Bides. Oh no, what happened to Bides? We've lost one to an actual incident, fortunately. It's the first victim to the rain in Albert Park. Of course, this is a very fast, a very high adrenaline track. But in the rain, there is no DRS, so drivers cannot take advantage of the 3 DRS zones available in the track. The first one is on the pit straight. Panos now approaching it and coming towards the line. Of course, as well, it's in the rain, so all the drivers have to be very careful. 128.0 sets pole. Last across the line will be CTAC. Still top 10, so, you know, it's great. Mousy the cheese. Yeah, let's see if we can get you an invite. I'm currently stuck waiting for it to go away from this screen. Thank you. I am still stuck on the screen. I will try and get you an invite, Mousy. If you just give me a moment, because EA will not allow you to invite when reviewing results, because... well, actually, I have no clue. I would love to know. Oh, come on. Let me invite someone. Let's get to racing already. 10 laps around Albert Park. Who does not want to see that? The weather for the sprint race will be overcast throughout the entire race. And then for the actual race, it will be sunny and clear. Mousy, are you Steam or are you EA? If you're Steam, you'll have to get Nadim to invite you. Unfortunately, I don't see you in my friends list. Or online, rather. Let me see if I can pop a message over to Nadim now. And hopefully we can get you sorted now. So we see the drivers going around. You will notice many of them will have just the mediums on. Fortunately, as I found out from some of the drivers yesterday during our Tier 3 and drivers on Friday for Tier 4, you cannot put on the softs. The game refuses to allow you, so all drivers will be going for the medium compound tyre today. There we go, we got Mousy in. So after that qualifying, we have our top 10. Stu, Nadim, and Lava serving qualifying bans for the number of penalties they have on their license. Thank you for that predicted pit stop strategy. You know, pits are not mandatory for the sprint race, so thank you for that strategy. Lovely to see. Hi, Katie. How are you? Hope you're doing well. Panos trying to really warm up those tyres. I'm awake. I got back to my PC about 20 minutes before I had to start streaming the race, so it's going well. I got home just in time. I do not want to miss this Tier 2 race, nor do I want to miss the Tier 1 race. Fortunately, these aren't as many drivers as we had last week, but it will still be a very exciting race indeed, as Panos has a bit of a moment there trying to warm up his tyres. Fortunately, so close to the line. All cars will be ghosted as they make their way to their grid stop. Grid position, sorry. Oh, donuts from the AlphaTauri there. Who is that? I think that's Anatoly. Trexie also doing the... God, people are trying to do donuts, but they're whacking the wall. You gotta not whack the walls. Gotta do a perfect 360. Of course, in 22, you are allowed to position yourself however you wish on the in your grid spot. So, of course, you can attack if you want, angle inwards into the inside line, or angle outwards, which I cannot see in any circumstances why you would want to do that in this race. Now, we have 3, 4, and 5 red lights, and away we go. Panos... Oh, this is a terrible angle. Panos with a very slow start, and Webby seems to have the better traction out of that grid box. The Alfa Romeo finds himself up into the lead now. Panos down into the P2, fighting for P1. We've got a bit of a tussle at the back there. Trexie fighting with his teammate Lewis, trying to get around the gate. But 4 wide into that third corner, sorry. Very impressive that no one had a spin. Nadim coming out on 10th. Actually, Ferrari going wide there. Fushy Wushy going wide and onto the grass. With the AlphaTauri, Anatoly going very deep into the corner and onto the grass. Fortunately, keeping his car together and going. That is Lewis out of the race as well. What's happened to Lewis? I did not see a thing happen there. That is the first driver out of the race for the sprint qualifying now as we come down towards the massive long straight in the second sector now, coming towards the quick snap left-right corner. We've seen Perez in the actual race. If you haven't seen the highlights, I will not spoil anything, don't you worry. But a brilliant place for overtakes, but also very risky if you are not careful with your throttle. Now if we go around with Nadim going towards into the third sector now, pushing very well, keeping his position up into 9th place. Slightly further ahead, I think we had Semi-Daniel and Semi-Daniel and Lava having a bit of a fight there. And Panos taking the lead again and setting the fastest lap, a 1:26.7. A pretty strong start for the Aston Martin. Alfa Romeo with a brilliant sprint race qualifying? Brilliant one-shot qualifying in the rain. Finding themselves in positions 2 and 3. Rebellious Tier 2 driver in position 4 for Ferrari. And reserve driver Fushy Wushy for Ferrari finds himself down at 13th, unfortunately, as we have a fight towards the back. Three-way fight between the AlphaTauri, the Mercedes, and what is that? The Williams driver just behind them. In fact, a 7-car battle for 7th place, all within 1 second of each other. About 3 seconds splitting the pack of 7 cars. Just behind, we've got CTAC going down the inside. No DRS enabled this lap, so a very brilliant move by the Williams driver. Now all over the gearbox of Semi-Daniel just ahead. I was going to say Mercedes sandwich, but no, you don't say a sandwich for the bread. You say the sandwich for what's in the middle. It's a Williams sandwich with Mercedes bread for CTAC at the moment. As we see there, that is Stu going late on the brakes, and that is spinning CTAC, and I think that was Fushy Wushy possibly getting involved in the contact. Yeah, he did. And with no front wing, that is the Ferrari driver into the pits. I wouldn't be surprised to see... No, Stu is not in the pits, nor is CTAC. Fushy Wushy now retiring from the race in the pits. Very unfortunate to see as we have a yellow flag ahead. That will be for Fushy Wushy retiring in the pits. Webby also now the first driver to fall victim to track limits around Albert Park, which dare I say is quite impressive. It is quite a wide track, though track limits are very much possible. Many corners do require you, if you're pushing the limit, require you to really put trust in your car and trust that it will stick to the ground. Now we'll see the two Alfa Romeos fighting down this DRS straight now. Fat Cat with the DRS makes the move well before the braking zone, almost locking up into that corner, and makes it successfully ahead of his teammate now. Will Fat Cat potentially have the pace to fight Panos in the sprint race, or will Panos continue to walk away with this gap? Currently 1.6 seconds ahead. Slightly further back, we appear to have Nadim fighting with the Alpine of Bides. Please do tell me if I'm mispronouncing your name. I do try. DRS enabled. Nadim, fortunately, not close enough. That DRS advantage gives you at least, I want to say, about 15 kilometers per hour in the actual race, real life race, but in F1 22, I'm not too sure. He looks for a move down the inside. Fortunately, he's not close enough to stick it quite well. Now Nadim will have about 2 or 3 corners before he's going to have another straight with that DRS activation. That intense drag reduction system helps decrease your drag, obviously, which will help improve your speed. Drivers in front of you will not get it, only drivers behind you, if they are within 1 second. Trexie making a move down the inside into that very sharp left and right hander on Rebellious. Now finds himself up into 4th place, and Fat Cat still only 1.5 seconds behind. In fact, now 2 seconds behind Panos up in 1st place. Now coming towards the pit straight, Rebellious will have DRS on Trexie. Will he be able to make a move now? Or will Trexie continue to remain ahead of him in 4th place? Fortunately, not close enough for the Ferrari driver to make a move into turn 1. Keeping it as close as possible into the 2nd DRS zone. And still finds himself not close enough, unfortunately. Further back, we got Nadim still right on that gearbox of the Alpine ahead of him. After serving a qualifying ban, setting a purple middle sector 2, and the Alpine ahead of him is getting a 3-second time penalty for track limits for multiple warnings. Nadim, serving a qualifying ban, finds himself from 10th place up into 8th place. So pretty good start for the Aston Martin driver, finding himself up 2 positions. Do have a yellow flag at the back there. Unfortunately, that is SeaTac without a front wing. Very unfortunate race for him, but this is the sprint. There is still the actual race, so still plenty of points available for him to grab. Now coming towards the pit straight, he will have DRS again. Will it be another straight where he is stuck, another lap stuck behind this blue car? And unfortunately, it will be another lap behind the Alpine driver. Further ahead, Rebellious with the DRS managed to get around the AlphaTauri. Now with Lava getting into the middle of this fight, going too wide into that 2nd sector. That was at the 4th corner, I believe. Trexie almost losing out on 2 positions from 1 overtake. Now Lava all over the gearbox of the AlphaTauri driver, whilst Ferrari continues to push and extend his lead ahead. Hopefully the Ferrari driver will be able to get ahead with no problem. Have a see with Lava now. Sticking close to that gearbox. Webby now retires from the race. Ahead of him now down into 12th place. Rebellious now in the fight for a podium finish in the sprint race. 3 cars all very close fighting for that podium position. Fortunately, in this fight, Rebellious will not have the DRS advantage on this straight, but the 4 cars behind him will all have DRS. This could be potential move down the inside for Trexie there with the DRS advantage. Unfortunately, Lava not close enough. Trexie still right on that gearbox, and now the 2 Alpines are getting closer and closer. This will soon be a very tight 5-way battle between the drivers now as we come to the closing stages of the sprint race with only 3 laps remaining. Who will come out on top and finish on that last step of the podium now, as Fat Cat unfortunately does not manage to close that gap now, down to 3 seconds between him and first place driver Panos in the Aston Martin. Now coming down towards that sharp, there's the DRS detection zone. All of those drivers will have it. Trexie is right on that gearbox into that corner. 3 of them all right behind one another. They will have DRS. Are we going to see a move from the Alpine driver going around the outside? In fact, down the inside, sorry. And he makes the move well before the braking zone. Brilliant move by the Alpine driver. Now finds his way up into 4th place. Rebellious still got the pressure. Can he continue this defending? Or will he lose out on that position now? 5 cars all behind each other. They will all have DRS. Lava is all over that Ferrari. And down the main straight, Rebellious goes to the inside for a defending move. Fortunately, Lava with that intense pace. There we see SeaTac off on the side there, unfortunately, as Lava now takes 3rd place. And Rebellious losing out in the position. Trexie as well getting overtaken by the other Alpine driver behind that as a Ferrari sandwich by the Alpine bread. Lava now into 3rd place. Now, of course, at the back of this pack, we still have Nadim trailing this 4-car battle. Perhaps the Aston Martin driver can pick up a few more positions. Currently sitting in 7th place, collecting himself 2 points in this sprint race, as the top 8 positions will take a point. Seeing the Alpine driver now, Bides, going around the outside and taking the position from Rebellious. Unfortunately, the Ferrari now down to 5th place. An Alpine with a 3-4, very strong sprint race so far for the Alpine drivers. But hopefully, as I was saying, Nadim, after serving his qualifying ban, now Trexie and Rebellious having a tussle. Trexie losing out to Nadim. There it is, Nadim capitalizing on that fight ahead of him. Finds himself up into 6th place. Strong start so far. And now coming down to the penultimate lap, or the... yeah, I think that's the penultimate lap. We have Aston Martin Panos in the lead, 5 seconds ahead. Fat Cat Batman 7 seconds behind him, and a 5-car battle for 3rd place with the 2 Alpines, then Ferrari. With, of course, we cannot forget, Bides has that 3-second time penalty. So with this close fight, he will find himself quite far down, as Lava now gets a 3-second time penalty. So at this rate, Rebellious is on track for a 3rd place finish. It is now down to the Alpine drivers to absolutely push the limit if they want to try and keep that 3rd place position for their points, for their Constructors' Championship and Drivers' Championship, in fact. It is 8 points cascading down from 1st place to 8th place. 8th place getting 1 point only, and there, I believe there is no point for the fastest lap, fortunately, as now Nadim makes a move round the inside, or down the inside on the Ferrari driver. Trexie as well. Now Rebellious down to 7th place, and Nadim is in the fight for a podium finish. Now he has absolutely got to push it with 2 seconds to the car ahead of him, and 2.5 seconds to Lava in 3rd place. He only has half a second, sorry, 0.8 seconds of a gap of leeway before he loses out on that potential 3rd place finish. Now crossing the line to start his final lap of the sprint race. We will see if the Aston Martin driver will be able to maintain in that half a second window and secure himself a 3rd place finish. We'll have to see. Slightly further behind, we've got Rebellious making a move down the inside on Trexie. Unfortunately, not able to make it stick. Still finds himself down to 7th place. So far, it was a good race for the Ferrari driver, but unfortunately now finds himself down into 7th place. Still collecting 2 points for the team, and 2 points crucially for his Drivers' Championship. back to Nadim, now sitting at 2.8 seconds to third place. That podium is slipping away quite quickly. 0.2 seconds now, 0.1 second. And he is now outside, he's just barely outside of that gap for a podium finish. Actually, let's finish this with it. Gap to leader. No, okay, you are not helpful at all. I wanted the interval from that individual driver, but it cannot give it to us. He's now sitting at 2.7 seconds. Panos now crossing the line, finishing the race 6 seconds ahead of Fat Cat Batman in first place and Fat Cat in second place. Alfa Romeo, strong points for them. Fortunately, their second driver out of the race. Lava crossing the line. Nadim closes that gap, and Nadim takes third place. A stellar drive for the Aston Martin driver, serving a qualifying ban and starting in 10th place, now finishing in third place after penalties. And his teammate just ahead of him in first place. So Aston Martin collecting a heap of points. What is that? That will be 14 points for the Aston Martin team now. And closing out the places, Anatoly, I believe, in the AlphaTauri, sorry, finishing in 8th place with that 1 point. Indeed, a great drive by Lava, going from last place, serving his qualifying ban, up into 4th place. But unfortunately, with that track limits penalty, that is his podium gone. So, although a very strong start, very unfortunate ending with those penalties. Of course, that was only 10 laps. That was only the sprint race. So, 29 laps of racing. Still lots to happen. And I'm curious to know what kind of strategy people will go for. I wouldn't be surprised. Our most common strategy we found throughout this season has always been a one-stop of mediums to hards or hards to mediums. Though it would be interesting to see if people are willing to risk a two-stop for some reason and go for like a medium, soft. Yes, still without safety car. Safety car is disabled for the time being. It is under discussion, and there is nothing more that can be said at the moment. As we now have a beautiful sight to see of all of our engineers or pit crew for all of our teams T-posing. Enjoy the T-posing and pit stop crew, because you know, gotta get those arms out, get limbered up for the pit stops ahead. It is a full sunny. It's a race full of sunshine. I promise I can get the words out of my mouth correctly, in the right order, with the right grammar. And as we await, we will see what strategies our drivers are going for. There it is. So the two-stop is possible. It is giving us a suggestion of softs, mediums, and hards, which will be interesting to see if they went for it. And we do have one driver on the softs, and that is Nadim. Whilst every other driver has gone for the mediums, and Webby and Fushy Wushy sitting in 12th and 13th on those hard compound tyres. So we do have the potential two-stopper on the track, and that is Nadim Jr. Legacy, who had a stellar sprint race and managing to recover from that qualifying ban, unfortunately, from the number of penalties on his license. The FIA have stated that to a certain number you will have to serve a qualifying ban. Unfortunately, he reached that limit and had to serve it this round. Fortunately, being such a fast-paced track, seems to have worked out for Nadim, and he's found himself up into third place. So it'll be interesting to see how the two-stop will work out for him. Slightly further back, although at the start of the race they will have a severe disadvantage to the drivers around him. Webby and Fushy Wushy are on the hard compound tyres, so for the first, I'd say about 5 to 6 laps easily, they will have a pace disadvantage to the drivers around them. But later on into the second half of the first stint of this race, they will have the advantage for their tyres, will be far more durable, however slower compared to the mediums. So we'll have to see how late are they willing to push their tyres before pitting for those mediums, or potentially, you know, I have to throw it out there, we've seen drivers do it in the past for last season, and so far I think one driver has attempted it this season at Austria last week, the one stop of hards to softs. So it'll be interesting to see if anyone will be daring enough to do so. Trexie unfortunately disqualified during the formation lap, not lining up in his pit box correctly. Same with the two Mercedes. Unfortunately, EA loves to give us this backwards camera for some reason, so we can't see them lining up. It does appear as though no driver has opted to angle the car at all. As saying that, the Red Bull at the back looks to have angled slightly. We'll have to see now with 5 red lights. Will Panos get a good start? Or will Fat Cat find himself ahead? Away we go. Fat Cat and Panos with a great start. Thank you for this terrible camera view as we go into turn 1. Who will come out ahead? Fat Cat stuck behind the Aston Martin driver. There is a spin. That is Lava spun around. And I think Trexie as well. Stu finds himself further back. Semi-Daniel as well falling behind. Let's see if we can catch up with him. Fortunately, down into 10th place. That is certainly... There's another spin there as well, in fact, I believe. Yes, there is. So a lot happening. We've got Trexie. Let's see if Trexie does not appear to have any damage to his car. Same with Lava, fortunately. And same with a few drivers. But the back C-Tac, unfortunately, losing his front wing now, finds himself down into last place. Further ahead, we've got Lewis reserving in for tier... No, sorry, not reserving in for tier 2. Racing with McLaren, finds himself going down the inside and around the Alpine driver ahead of him. Bides now down in 7th place. And Nadim, with those softs, unfortunately hasn't managed to capitalise just yet, but he is still half a second behind on the Alfa Romeo driver ahead of him, Fat Cat on those mediums. Further behind, we've got Fushy Wushy and Webby on those hard combat tyres, fighting really hard and all over the gearbox of BI's just ahead of him to being involved in an incident. Now Webby finds himself up into 8th place and finds himself all over the gearbox there. And then Semi-Daniel, also right there in that fight now. So we see, I think that was Bides going into the pits. The Alpine driver, unfortunately, being involved in a first lap incident there. Stu as well. Now... That is Daniel looking to make a move down the inside on the Ferrari driver. Does find himself ahead into 8th place. Fighting back comes Fushy Wushy on those hard combat tires. He may have that disadvantage, but he certainly has that courage to get his elbows out and fight. Though looking for a move down the inside. Unfortunately, he's not close enough to make a move, and the Alpine driver almost colliding with the Ferrari ahead of him. Fortunately, stopping just in time now. 4 drivers in the pits. 2 swapped to the hard combat tyres and 2 to the soft tyres as well. Be interesting to see where they come out with that now. We do have a yellow flag out for an AlphaTauri driver. I believe that is Trexie, unfortunately. Finds himself spun. We've got Mousy the Cheese making a move down the inside along that long straight. And now finds himself up into 4th place into that swift left and right. Trexie, unfortunately, lost in this race. Hopefully we can get him connected back into this race now. As we go further ahead, we've got Panos still leading the race, 1.8 seconds ahead of his teammate Nadim, who started on the soft compound tyres, finds himself up into 2nd place. So a very strong start for the AlphaTauri drivers, making those softs really work now. As Fat Cat Batman crossed the line in 2nd place, Trexie retiring from this race, unfortunately. Sorry for my throat there. Unfortunately, it does not appear as though he retired in the pit lane. There it is, race control. DRS is now enabled, and not any driver, found within 1 second of the driver ahead of him will have the drag reduction system enabled. There is a rear flap, the rear wing, that will open up. That will decrease the drag and increase the speed along certain straights. There are 3 DRS straights on this track. One down the pit straight just after turn 1 and into turn 3. There is also a second DRS straight, but far shorter, and then into the 3rd sector you have a slightly longer straight for the DRS. Slightly further back, Webby finds himself now up into 7th place. If we have a look at the changes, we got Mousy, who qualified in 15th place, finds himself up into 4th place. Brilliant drive by the Red Bull, as we see Webby going for a move around the outside now into the corners. Rebellious, unfortunately, retiring from this race. It appears as though he's come out of that corner that we've just gone through now. I believe that was turns 12 and 13, possibly. Unfortunately, finds himself out of the race now. Now going into the third sector, Webby up into 5th place, Lewis up into 6th place. But back to Mousy, that is an incredible drive so far to find himself so far up. As I think Semi-Daniel now throws himself into the pits. I believe potentially found himself in the midst of an incident there. But Mousy, 15th, joining the lobby unfortunately after the sprint race. So he was dead last. But finds himself now up into 4th place. So stellar drive by the Red Bull driver, off to see where he comes out of this race after the pit window opens for the mediums. Mediums last, I believe, around 12 to 14 or 15 laps. Please do correct me if I am wrong. But I believe it's around 15 laps is at most you can push the mediums before they do truly start to drop off a cliff. As we have, I believe, Rob G having an incident on that pit straight, losing the end plate of his front wing. Nadim on those softs, closing that gap to his teammate ahead of him. Now as we see him within 1 second, he will have DRS, but of course those softs will drop off very quickly, as we saw during the sprint race. No drivers opted for that soft tyres. They will not survive 10 laps. Mousy now falling victim to track limits. But Nadim, currently coming up to lap 5, will have DRS on those soft compound tyres. How soon will he drop off a cliff before he has to pit for his next set of tyres now, setting the fastest lap? Behind we've got Lava and Webby fighting coming down the main straight. Webby, after retiring in the sprint race, now finds himself up into 6th place. Brilliant driving by the Alfa Romeo driver, unfortunately losing out position to the Alpine driver, who finds himself now ahead as Nadim makes a driver error. Now unfortunately finds himself down into 4th place. Now Mousy in contention for a podium finish. Of course, this is only 5 laps in, so, you know, there's still a lot to happen. 24 laps remaining, but so far, Mousy from 15th place at the start of this race, now in 3rd place with 3-second time penalty. I certainly do look forward to see what he has in store for us today at Albert Park now. Webby, 0.6 seconds behind the Alpine driver just ahead of him. He will still have DRS coming into this next straight. But unfortunately, I do not believe, we'll have to see, you know, he might have the pace. DRS will be a huge game changer in this race if you manage to not use it, maintain it only for the straights. You can have a huge advantage to the drivers around you, as Robbie G now retires from this race. There we go, you can see his unfortunate chassis left on the road there. Slightly further back, I believe we've got Stu right on the gearbox of Lewis just ahead of him now, going into that sharp left and right. He will have DRS coming down this straight here, but we'll have to see now. Unfortunately, it does not appear to be close enough to capitalize on that DRS advantage. Now coming into the next DRS detection zone, he is still within that second now. Anatoly in the pits. Fat Cat Batman with a 3-second time penalty in 2nd place now. Stu will have DRS again. He is half a second back. Now with this long straight, will he have that pace to be able to cut that gap down and potentially make a move? But unfortunately, he finds himself still quite far back and not close enough as he would have hoped to make a move. Now Webby just falling out of that 1 second, but now back into that 1 second. So really trying to push and get his way into that 1 second and remain in that window for a pace advantage now, as we see Stu making a position change into 10th place ahead of Lewis. Now, Joe, but although Nadim has a pretty bad streak, but still a streak nonetheless, of DNFing each race. Now, he's still got 22 laps to DNF. Let's not get too hasty with this. But to clarify, of course, we do not wish our drivers to DNF. It is all fun and games for some of us, but we want our drivers to succeed. Now, if we have a quick look to see the tyres, this is the wrong one to change for tyres. Nadim on those 6-lap-old softs. Surely they must be crying now, especially after that spin. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him dive in the pits soon. Roughly 23 seconds, 23 or 24 seconds lost in the pits, if I remember correctly. So Nadeem will find himself around about 6th or 7th place when he... Sorry, not around about. He will come out 7th place ahead of the Alpine driver, perhaps behind the Alpine driver as well, depending on how slow his stop is. Of course, in 22, you have that option over the previous games to choose when you turn in for your pit window. If you turn in too early or too late, you will have a far slower stop than your optimum pit stop of, I believe, 2.2 is the fastest you can get that this game allows you to get. So it'll be interesting to see what will happen now going into the 7th lap. Nadeem still not pitting. He is pushing those softs. Perhaps we will see a one-stop of softs to hards. It'll be interesting to see if he does pull that off. And if he does, perhaps the Tier 1 drivers will have something to think about for their race later. Perhaps the softs medium, softs hards is a strategy they may choose to opt for instead. Of course, that kind of strategy does come with a lot of risk. If those softs fall off a cliff quite quickly, which they will do around this track, you run the risk of losing a position quite quickly, or potentially pushing the limit into 70 or 80% usage and getting yourself a puncture. So high risk, high reward. Who will be down to try it? We'll have to see now. Nadeem 4 seconds back from Mousy ahead of him. There goes Nadeem into the pits. Had enough of those soft compound tyres. We'll have to see now. Will he grab the hards, or is he going straight? There he goes, straight onto the hards. Now, will this be a one-stop by the Aston Martin driver, or are we going to see a two-stop, potential two-stop? It's one of the few tracks where you can do that. It's interesting. So perhaps that's the strategy that Nadeem has opted for. We'll have to see if that works out in his favour. Of course, he started the race in 3rd place after a stellar sprint race, starting from 10th all the way up into 4th place. So it'll be interesting to see now. 20 laps to go. Can these hard compound tyres last? Or will Nadeem be struggling at the end of this race? Fortunately, it is around that time of the race where it gets quite quiet. Drivers are on different strategies, different setups, so the pace will continuously vary across the grid. Having said that, though, we do have a short fight here. We've got SeaTac, Pulse, and the Williams fighting with Lewis for 11th place at the moment. So we'll have to see now, will the Williams, with that 7 all lap softs, we've already seen Nadeem pit after 8 laps for the hard, after 10 laps with those hards. So will SeaTac pit now, or will he continue to fight this position? But other than this battle, it is down to pace, down to the consistency of the drivers ahead. Of course, they need to avoid penalties. 3 seconds for track limits. There we go. We see the Williams now pitting. Had enough of those soft compound tyres and will perhaps be going for that one stop too. Will the drivers be able to keep their pace consistent, or will they get penalties? 3 seconds for track limits or multiple warnings, 5 seconds for cutting corners or speeding in the pit lane. There you go, multiple warnings for semi-Daniel, or 10 seconds if you cut a massive corner and get a huge advantage. Which, of course, we hope our drivers don't do, because 10 seconds can be detrimental to your race. We already saw Sainz, for example, go from 5th to 12th. Bad game. Well, we can thank EA for that. Please do, thank your friendly EA round the corner for a beautiful game with amazing graphics, RTX, everything, sports cars, but not a working and functioning game where you can drive F1. So fair enough if you wish to retire and go to ACC. Of course, ACC is a lot of fun. So Lewis now getting ahead of Stu down that main straight. Mousy does appear to be closing that gap down now. Down to 3 seconds, the driver ahead of him. Of course, those mediums now surely will be approaching that pit window in the next 2 to 3 laps. It'll be interesting to see now who of the medium runners currently sitting in the top 4, the only medium runners sitting in the top 4, who will be the first to pit. Webby and Fushiwushi starting on those hard compound tires, I believe, if I remember correctly, starting in 12th and 13th, I believe, just outside of the points. Now finds himself in 5th and 6th. Net P1 and 2 after the medium tire runners pit for their hard compound stops. Hard compound stops? Hard compound tires. There goes Fat Cat Batman, the first one to pit of the medium runners onto those, well, I say hard compound tires, potentially could be going for soft, who knows? But realistically, yeah, it'll be those hard compound tires. Now Fat Cat finds himself down into, I believe that will be Webby coming down the straight, so it'll be 5th place behind his teammate, with Fushiwushi on those hard compound tires just behind. Now Fat Cat Batman, who was sitting in 2nd place, down into 5th. When will the rest of the drivers pit? Of course, the undercut is... Well, Sinead, please do correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe the undercut is very much possible on this track. So, Fat Cat can fire up those tyres in time. I say that now, unfortunately, as Fat Cat coming out of the corner trying to warm up his tyres and make it through. Now retires from this race. From 5th down and out of this race now. It is to see, now it's down to Webby for the Alfa Romeo. Will we see him get up there and be able to gain as many points as possible now with the retirement of his teammate? Very unfortunate race for Fat Cat there. Slightly further back, it appears as though we've got a 3-way battle now for 10th place. The last of the scoring points, in fact, it'll be 9th place after they clear Fat Cat around this corner now. Anatoly, Lewis, and Stu all on different pit strategies, as we have 2nd and 3rd place now pitting. We have Mousy the Cheese and Lava into the pits. Lava getting a 5-second time penalty for speeding into the pit lane, so it'll be interesting to see how much will he lose from that time penalty, as Mousy gets a 3-second time penalty for crossing track limits. Mousy, with practically a free pit stop there, finds himself down from 2nd place into 3rd place. So now it's down to just 3 drivers left. We've got ourselves Fushiwushi in 4th place, starting on those hard compound tires, 13 laps in, still going along with Webby in 2nd place for Alfa Romeo, and Panos, who started this race on pole. He finished qualifying on pole. He finished the sprint race in first place and now leading the race. Still leading on 13 old tyres. 20 seconds ahead of P2 as well. So his pit stop will be fairly simple, but I will not jinx it. I will move on to someone else before I get complaints for jinxing their drivers. As we see the fight between Anatoly, Lewis and Stu now calming down. Unfortunately, the fight has stopped. In fact, Stu coming out on top in 9th place now. Got a couple pairs of drivers there. We've got Semi and Stu in 8th and 9th for Mercedes. Lava and Bides in 6th and 7th for Alpine there. Unfortunately, and then we've got Aston Martin, 1 and 5, Panos and Nadim. Unfortunately, Fushy Wushy, the only Ferrari on the grid for Rebellious, has retired from this race. Mousy the Cheese as well, the only Red Bull on the track. First teammate Robbie G retired from the race. And then in the last point position, we've got Webby as well, with his teammate retiring from this race. So a lot of drivers left alone to collect Drivers' Championship points and Constructors' Championship points. It'll be interesting to see now who will come out on top. Now let's have a look. Nadim 0.6 behind Fushiwushi, and Panos now puts it in. What are the words I'm looking for here? Panos now into the pits. Sick of those medium compound tyres. Of course, he had 19.8 seconds behind him to Webby. Now Webby coming around the final corner. And I think Panos had a big enough time gap to potentially still come out ahead. He's coming out of the pit stops now. And yeah, he's already up to speed and into the first corner. Panos pitting for those hard compound tyres keeps his position and maintains the lead of this race now as Nadim makes the move on Fushy Wushy up into 4th place now. So far, that one stop is slowly starting to pay off. Of course, still, 13 laps remaining in this race. It'll be interesting to see what he can do now. Slightly further behind, we've got ourselves Anatoly fighting with a Mercedes driver, Stu. Anatoly on 4-lap, fresher hard compound tyres, of course. Hard compound tyres can last a while, but having fresher ones will always give you a pace advantage to those that are older. Fushy Wushy already losing a position to Nadim. Fortunately, still half a second behind the Aston Martin driver, and just 7 tenths behind. Lava is in this fight. But of course, we have a quick look to see the penalties. Lava, with that 5-second time penalty after speeding into the pit lane, will be quite detrimental to his race now, as we see Lava almost pushing the Ferrari driver ahead into that corner now. Fushiwoshi now defending as much as he can instead of attacking. Will we see the Alpine get ahead? He does try to go for a move around the outside and possibly a switchback down the main straight. He will have DRS advantage. And there goes the Alpine driver very quick down that main straight. Of course, DRS helping hugely with that overtake. Now Lava into 5th place. But of course, he has that 5-second time penalty. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Welcome, Matty. How are you doing? Fushiwushi, I believe the only driver, sorry, no, not Fushiwushi. Fushiwushi and Webby, the only 2 drivers to still pit from the start of this race on those hard compound tyres, just behind the Ferrari. We have the other Alpine on 15-lap-old hards, unfortunately being involved in an incident on the first lap, pitting from those medium compound tyres onto the hards, also on those old tyres. Although that Alpine has completed his mandatory pit stop, I have no doubt that those hard compound tyres will be screaming well before the end of the race, and we'll have to go for a second pit stop. And there goes Webby into the pits now, stopping just in time for the pit limiter line, and he will be fitting on the medium compound tyres for the rest of this race now. Fushy Wushy as well into the pits. sick of those hard compound tyres. SeaTac with a 3-second time penalty, unfortunately, for multiple warnings. And now into this race, 6th and 7th for the two drivers. They will have a huge pace advantage to drivers ahead. Of course, there is the tyre simulation when you come out of the pits in this game. So now when you come out of the pits, your tyres will not always be at optimum temperature. They will start, I believe, 60 to 70 degrees Celsius. So drivers will have to be careful with them and warm them up, fire them up as best as they can before they get back up to racing speed. Of course, we've already seen one driver, unfortunately, come out the pit after a pit stop and fail to warm up his tyres perfectly, or potentially have a driver error and result in him into the wall. Now with 11 laps remaining, Panos setting the new fastest lap on those 3-lap-old hards at 1:20.584. Will we see Webby with those fresher mediums for 10 laps, or 11 laps, sorry? Where will Webby and Fushiwushi find themselves at the end of this race? Still lots of penalties to be served as soon as drivers cross the line, of course. 5-second time penalties can be served in the pits, however you will lose a lot of time. So I cannot imagine Lava pitting anytime soon to serve that 5 seconds that he received for speeding in the pit lane. Slightly further ahead, Lava cutting that gap down as we have a fight at the back. Unfortunately, looks as though Stu potentially might have had a spinner. He's on 16 old lap hards. Doesn't look as though he's got any damage to his car, fortunately, so he will continue and be able to drive. Stu and Bides, the only two drivers on the grid who pitted on that first lap. Or sorry, on the, what is that, second or third lap, sorry, for those hard compound tyres, surely must be pitting at some point very soon, because those hard compound tyres will be crying well before the end of this race. But he does appear to be maintaining that gap ahead to his teammates, so clearly has the pace still. Guess those tyres are still perfect for him, still good for him, if he's keeping up that pace. His teammate ahead of him now closing that gap, 1.2 seconds, 1.3 seconds to Nadim ahead. Of course, Nadim went for a soft hard strategy in this race, so he will have 11 lap old hards, whereas Lava behind him went for a medium hard strategy, so his hard compound tyres will be far newer, far fresher for him. So we have Stu into the pits now. Lava now within a second. He will have DRS. Unfortunately, though, I'm not sure if he entered the DRS detection zone within that 1 second. We'll have to see. He did manage to get inside that 1 second, so he has DRS, but unfortunately, he's not close enough just yet to capitalize on that advantage. But he certainly will be able to close that gap now. .9 seconds from the start of that pit straight, now down to 0.7, entering the second sector. Lava now fighting in a very good fighting position for a potential third place. Fastest is Panos with a 1:20.584. Oh, that's very unfortunate for Lava. Very obvious corner cutting there. And unfortunately that does result with a 3-second time penalty, now down to, sorry, up to 8 seconds. But all over that gearbox of Nadim, of course, those penalties will be served at the end of the race. Nadim will only have to keep himself within 3 seconds, potentially 8 seconds, if that 5 seconds is not removed, for keeping that third place finish for Aston Martin. There goes the other Alpine into the pits now. Had enough of those hard compound tyres. Of course, he was involved in a first lap incident. Unfortunately, had to pit far earlier than expected. Now coming out on the soft compound tyres, will find himself, I believe, just behind the Ferrari driver, as now the Ferrari driver is coming down the pit straight. Will be a race to the first corner, but I think... no! Besides, finds himself now ahead of the Ferrari driver, and with those soft compound tyres, if he fires them up in the right window, he will have a huge pace advantage over those mediums, 4-lap-old mediums for Ferrari. But with 16.5 seconds ahead of him to Webby on the medium compound tyres, will 7 laps be enough for him to cut that gap down and get back into that fight for a potential 4th place finish now, as we fortunately missed the fight between Lava and Nadim. Lava, after that DRS straight, that third DRS straight around Albert Park, manages to make the move on Nadim on those 5-lap fresher hard compound tyres. Now up into 3rd place. Of course, ahead of him we can see that there are penalties for Mousy the Cheese. Mousy the Cheese with 6 seconds of time penalties, and Lava sitting 0.3 seconds behind the Red Bull driver. So Nadim simply has to play the waiting game, and if Nadim makes it within that 6-second window to the driver ahead of him, he will actually find himself in a position to potentially finish with a 1-2 for Aston Martin. So that would be a very strong finish indeed for the team. So we have a yellow flag, unfortunately. Anatoly finds himself off into the grass, into the 3rd sector, right after that sharp left and right hander. Now, as we go back to Nadim, we can see him 0.7 seconds behind, still fighting with Lava, but potentially could this be a place where Lava will help cut that gap down to Mousy ahead of him, and could Nadim capitalise even further from his qualifying ban? And from that very risky, very daring one-stop strategy, soft to hards, find himself up into 2nd place. We will see now with 6 laps to go. Panos crossing the line for lap 24. Lava still 6.3 seconds behind Mousy ahead of him, but slowly closing. We'll have to see now in the final stages of this race. Nadim still fighting now, 0.4 seconds behind. He will continue to have DRS for the duration of this race if he remains within 1 second of the driver ahead of him. Besides, with the fastest lap of 1:19.238 on those soft compound tyres, unfortunately also with a 3-second track limit penalty, or from multiple warnings, sorry. Besides, of course, pitted for the soft compound tyres just 2 laps ago, so will have a huge pace advantage to the drivers around him. Therefore, fastest lap is an easy point in the pocket, sitting in 6th place. He'll be able to capitalise on his unfortunate involvement in an incident in the first few laps of the race. And I believe that will be 6 points, 7 points with the fastest lap, I believe. Or something like that, for sitting in 6th place. I should know this. I should know how many points you get in each position, but unfortunately I don't. And that is the world we live in. I will learn. Now, as Lava, unfortunately, appears to have made a mistake. Perhaps both of the drivers have made a mistake. But unfortunately, Lava went from 0.2 seconds behind on the last lap coming down the straight, now down to 0.67 seconds behind. So that's 0.5 seconds lost in the past lap to the driver ahead of him. So Nadeem still currently only looking at a third place finish. Still a brilliant finish for the Aston Martin driver. But unfortunately won't be a green 1-2. Here at Albert Park, just behind, we do have a fight with the Williams going down the inside, in fact, on the McLaren driver, but unfortunately couldn't quite make the move. And there is Mousy the Cheese now. They are being blue flagged for Mousy the Cheese in second place. SeaTac, unfortunately, cutting the corner, trying to make a move. There goes Rob G lapping the drivers ahead. Interesting to see where this fight will go. Will the Williams be able to get ahead? Unfortunately, he does have those 9 seconds of penalties, so will not be scoring any points this race, but certainly on track can still finish in 10th place before penalties are applied. Now 3 laps remaining. Lava is cutting that gap down again, 6.5. We see SeaTac looking for a move down the inside, but unfortunately, again, is not close enough to make the move just yet. And he will have now a second attempt with DRS. Lava with another 3 seconds of time penalties as Nadeem falls out of that 1 second window for DRS. And there goes the Williams fighting with the McLaren, unfortunately coming out of the corner and spinning into the wall. He has now lost his front wing, and unfortunately that will be it for that fight. You will now unfortunately have to pit. Potentially could fight for grabbing that fastest lap, but of course being out of the top 10, he will not be able to score that point. That is the end of that battle, unfortunately. Next closest battle on the track is still Nadeem to Lava. Fortunately, Nadeem, with those very old hards, of course, he went for the one-stop strategy. Now 18 lap old hard compound tyres, unfortunately starting to really lose pace to the driver ahead of him with 5 lap fresher tyres. As we can see Nadeem now coming up to the McLaren of Lewis there. Unfortunately, the next driver to be lapped in this race. Lewis and Anatoly running on very old hard compound tyres, 21 and 22 laps for the two of them. Still in point scoring position, so very good drive indeed by those two drivers. Able to secure 1 and 2 points for the team. Lewis being the only McLaren driver on the grid today. And Anatoly unfortunately losing his teammate to a retirement from this race. The yellow flag, sector 1, I believe that will be SeaTac. Unfortunately, off of the track there and into the grass. Fortunately, though, keeps his car in one piece and is still driving. As Nadeem now laps the McLaren driver. And on to the final lap we will go. Oopsies, wrong button, apologies. I am fumbling here. I was meant to press this button to Panos, our race leader, who has coped brilliantly. I say coped brilliantly. It's been a breeze of a race for him now as we go round into the second sector now. He is improving. Unfortunately, though, he's not going to improve enough to be able to grab that fastest lap back from Bides. But Panos finishing first in the sprint, in the one-shot qualifying, sorry. As Semi-Daniel now retires from the race. Fortunately, is out, and that is 8th place gone for the Mercedes driver. But that retirement does promote Stu now up into 10th place. Still 1 point in the bag for Mercedes. But as I was saying earlier, Panos finished in first place for one-shot qualifying in wet weather conditions. Almost lost the sprint race lead out of the first corner, yes, for sprint race, but managed to come back and claim pole position or first place, and now finishing the race 9.5 seconds ahead of Mousy the Cheese in second place. Panos wins the Australian Grand Prix in Tier 2. Now as Mousy crossed the line with, I believe it was 6 seconds of penalties. Mousy, who didn't qualify, joined at the end of the sprint, starting last on the grid. Now finishes in second place. Absolutely driver of the day. Finds himself on the second step of the podium. And Nadim as well, qualifying ban after a brilliant drive during the sprint race, finds himself up to third place. And then with a one-stop strategy, secures a 1-3 finish for Aston Martin. So still huge points for the team. 21 laps on those hard compound tyres. So a very impressive drive for him. Webby, unfortunately, losing his teammate in this race. He went for the hard and medium strategy compared to the rest of drivers around him and finds himself up into 4th place. So a very good drive by the Alfa Romeo team. And Alpine with a brilliant 5-6 finish after a qualifying ban and being involved in a first lap incident, still managing to score those points, and Bides going for a 2-stop strategy from mediums onto hards very early into the race and finishing on those soft compound tyres, and of course securing that extra point for the fastest lap. And unfortunately, I did not get through that list quick enough, so I do not remember the rest of the grid. Hopefully we will be able to have an interview with the top 3 finishers. Mousy the Cheese, certainly driver of the day. I do agree with this. Very lucky, but also very incredible drive by the Red Bull driver. Now, as we get to wait for EA and F122 to, finally give us what we want to see, the podium finish for Panos. We have a look now. There are the results. Panos securing 33 points for the team. Nadim with 21. That is 54 points for Aston Martin. So a lot of points there. And let's see if we can get ourselves a shot of the results. Fastest lap, of course, goes to Bides. That was a brilliant drive for him. Very unfortunate to see him getting involved in that first lap incident. There is the score of points. 13 drivers for this race today. 13 drivers in point scoring positions across the 2 different races. Now, in the waiting room, we do have our first and third place winners, but first and second place winners in the overall standings for the weekend, scoring 23 and 21 points. 33 and 21 points for their teams. For Aston Martin, let's actually drag them in here. Let's have Panos first. Panos and Nadim, welcome. Panos, please tell me how that race was. You were storming ahead of the pack. I mean, that must have been a breeze for you.
Yeah, nothing much happened, to be honest. Just managing the pace and tires pretty much, and well, nothing to add really. Everything went perfectly this weekend. We get a bunch of points in the constructors, so yeah, nothing else to add really.
And Nadeem, how's that race for you? I mean, you went for you unfortunately had the qualifying ban during the one shots. Of course, you started in 10th place, but capitalized really well in that sprint race, coming out in 3rd place, if I remember correctly, and then capitalizing really well on those soft compound tires to start with, and then going for the softs to hards. How was that race for you?
Oh, difficult. Must say it was a roller coaster of emotions, really. Had that unfortunate spin on the softs, lost a few positions, then came about, was able to fight back and get that podium position, but overall the weekend was just great for us. Getting a quali ban and then getting P3 in the sprint was really just impressive on my side, I must say. I wasn't expecting that, but we had the pace all around and just we're gonna looking forward to next week in China, and we're gonna try and get that one too for everybody. And yes, it's not DNF Nadim. Yes, it's not for DNFs in a row. We get a podium. Let's go.
That's good. And Owl, how was that for you as a race engineer for Aston Martin? I'm sure that was a fairly stressful race, but still an enjoyable race, I hope, for the team.
Absolutely, the practice really paid off, and I put Nadim on an alternative strategy, and it just paid off eventually because in the how should I put this? Let's say the strategy worked as intended, and because of the strategy, we made a fairly good recovery. So, but that's also thanks to the penalty that helped us in the end. But still, I'm really proud of these guys. They really can race, and yeah, it was good fun.
Well, glad to hear it. What do you guys think about China next week? Do you think that's going to be another race victory for Aston Martin?
Hope so. I
Is
mean,
that a strong track for you, or is that possibly a weak point? Because I've definitely seen a few drivers complain about China.
yeah, I mean, it's tricky with the traction sometimes because you have the very long right and left-handers where you cannot go full throttle. You have to be very cautious going through them. But I think if we can get a good setup, which Owl is pretty much an expert in, we should be fine.
And Nadeem, what about
Thanks, mate.
yourself? Do you think China's a strong track for you?
Most definitely. I do enjoy going to China. It's one of I must have to say one of my better tracks that I do enjoy. So I'm looking forward to it because yeah, I really want to see if we can maximize again.
Awesome. Well, that was, I believe, 54 points for Aston Martin, so I certainly will help you hugely with your Constructors' Championship for Tier 2. So we'll have to see
Definitely.
how far you guys get up before the mid-season break at China next week. So I look forward to having another interview with you guys, hopefully with a 1-2. I won't jinx it, still got a week to go. But you know what I'm looking for now. I want to see the green drivers at the top. So you better get that practice in.
We'll give it our best, yeah.
Awesome.
As
Well,
usual.
I look forward to chatting with you guys later next week. Let's
Yeah,
get our
absolutely.
second place winner in here. Mousy the Cheese, welcome to the commentators box. That was, I have to say, I am stunned by that drive. I mean, you joined, unfortunately you missed out on the sprint race.
Yeah.
So you started dead last, but then you've come out to finish in second place during this race. How was that race for you?
It was very stressful, with the penalties. I was always under pressure in the medium stint against, I'm not sure. But I just took advantage of that first lap incident. I don't even know what happened. I just saw a lot of cars off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I unfortunately didn't get to see the whole incident, but I mean, you capitalized really well on it. Clearly, I mean, you found yourself up. What was that? 13 places from the start of the
Jeez.
race. So, stellar drive for you and the team.
Yeah. After these first two races, I didn't even attend the first one because it was too early. And the second one, unfortunate, just really unfortunate, the spin. And now this is what I needed, a P2 finish.
That's good. Are you looking forward to China next week. Do you think that's a strong track for you?
Unfortunately, I'm going to be in Disney World when that happens. So
Oh no, so we're gonna miss your spectacular driving around China.
yeah.
Well, I do look forward to seeing your any photos you might share with the community for Disneyland. I honestly I want to go now. Can I come with you?
maybe you can fit in my bag.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you for joining me today. I will miss you on track next week, but I do look forward to seeing you back on track after the mid-season break. So thank you for joining me for the
Are we
interview.
going in Monaco after season?
Yes, it will be Monaco after the mid-season
Ooh.
break. So it'll be interesting to see how many drivers show up for that. I'm certainly going to show up for that because I don't like Monaco, but I do like a challenge.
Same. Can't wait for that.
Well, I do look forward to seeing you with a Red Bull at the top of the timing sheets for qualifying and hopefully a Red Bull at the top step.
I just have a question. Am I going to get a 3-second time penalty for not attending the briefing?
Unfortunately, drivers will be receiving a 3-second time penalty for late briefing, but there are
Yeah,
first offence warnings, so we'll have to see about that.
Yeah, I was just asleep and I couldn't notify you guys that,
Happens to
couldn't
the best of us. We all need our beauty sleep.
Yeah, after that race yesterday, the real F1 race, I went to bed at about 1. It was a really crazy race.
It was indeed. Well, thank you for joining me in the commentators box. I will
Thank
look forward to seeing you at Monaco. Enjoy your trip to Disneyland. No, I am
Thank
very
you.
jealous of you because I wish I could go now. I will see you at Monaco.
Alright, see ya.
And I believe that will be it for the interviews today for Tier 2. Please do not go anywhere. We do have Tier 1 right around the corner. The briefing for Tier 1 starts in 23 minutes. So Tier 1 drivers, be sure to be there on time, or you might, as mentioned just now, you may be penalized for late to briefing. So please do get there on time. And I will see you guys in about half an hour for the stream, maybe a bit more. We'll see. Cheerio.